Okay. There's somebody. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to our Lunch and Learn this month. As I mentioned before, if you're just popping on, we will have everyone muted for the first part of the presentation. You can feel free to type any comments or questions into the chat box, and we'll be monitoring that. Then at the end, I will give everyone the ability to unmute themselves for a question and answer portion. Also, just as a warning, we are recording the session, so you can reference it later, so we can send it to anybody who couldn't make it. So to get us started, I will turn it over to Helen Mcgarry. She is the Interim Director of the Penn State Mont Alto Launchbox.
Thank you very much, Leighton. I really appreciate you hosting us today. So for anybody that is not aware, the Penn State Mont Alto Launchbox is part of a university-wide initiative under the brand Invent Penn State, with a goal to assist entrepreneurs, startups, and small businesses by connecting them to resources both within the university and external to the university in the state of Pennsylvania. Some of the internal resources include very valuable resources like intellectual property and legal services. And then some of those other resources outside of the university are connecting with organizations such as the Chamber of Commerce, Economic Development, the Small Business Development Center, and SCORE. So this collaboration really provides a great opportunity for entrepreneurs and startups in the state of Pennsylvania to be able to access very, very valuable resources pretty quickly. And so this week marks Global Entrepreneurship Week. So we're very excited to bring this Lunch and Learn to Franklin County through the Chambersburg Chamber. We are having Kathyrn Gratton, who is the founder of Red Lips Mentor, present this session for you on the things, the key metrics to pay attention to as you get your business up and running, as you nurture your business. And Kathyrn is a valuable member of the Mont Alto Entrepreneurship Advisory Council. And as such, I welcome her today to facilitate this session. So Kathyrn, you want to take it away?
Thank you. Yes. First off, I'm going to say if you see a blur go across my screen, we adopted a new kitten a few weeks ago, and he believes the entire world is his playground. So he makes random appearances and causes, when I have digital backgrounds, little glitches. So just so you know, it's not your eyes playing tricks on you. It's my little terror tot. That said, thank you so much for allowing me to do this. I've missed doing mentoring and teaching. That's been one of the downfalls of this because we haven't. And in the interim of not being able to do that, I've been seeing a lot of people who COVID has forced them to cut hours in their businesses, cut positions, all that stuff. Really re-strategize and rethink how am I going to run in what potentially, I mean, we're forecasting into spring now for things happening, my new normal is going to be. And especially on the part of when you start looking at, you've had to let people go, you've had to reevaluate what positions are doing, it's caused you to probably look at your bottom line, your operations, and who can share what, who can do what, or it's caused you to go out on your own and start a business that you've always had that dream of in the back of your mind. And with that, it kind of came about this topic of that nurturing piece. So one of the first things, if you're in the half where you're looking at you're starting something and you're starting a business, I'm going to put a plug for beginning the research out and investing the time to make sure you've either established your LLC or you're setting up your business entity, that you have insurances on yourself. Do not skimp on those areas, and that you have a business plan in place. Those will help you a lot as you go forward with the business. Have a lot of people I've seen over the years kind of shoot from the hip on what they wanted to do, and we end up going back later and having to create those items. So first tip on nurturing your starting side of the business, make sure you have your foundation in place. All those foundational pieces will play a role later. Next piece, going into things that people kind of say, oh, I can do later, but they don't realize it needs to happen in the early phases, is there's a lot of research on the back end of starting a business in terms of who you're selling to, who you're selling against, all of that. So create it. Once you've got the idea of what your business is going to be, you need to sit down and create a customer profile. Now, you'll have many segments that this customer profile will branch off of and will turn into secondary clients and third, and seasonal and so forth. But creating that first initial, this is the cardboard cutout of who I expect to see walk through my door or call me on the phone or hop on the computer and sign up for a Zoom meeting. You kind of want to define that. It doesn't help you if it's broad. You actually want more detail, because you can always start from the little piece and work outward. So for example, my company, Red Lips Mentoring, I can tell you my typical client is actually more female. I think that's just in part the Red Lips side, that I end up working with more females than I do males. They are typically in their late 30s to early 50s. They are more of an online service. They are more of a solo to 3 employees max size company. And they tend to have a lot of a digital presence in their business services. So I've narrowed it that far that I know that's who I'm talking to when I'm probably sitting down and having a meeting with someone. For restaurants, I realize again that could be something of a more broad scale, because everybody likes to eat, everybody goes out to eat. But what your cuisine is could identify what type of folks are coming in. I mean, if you're offering French cuisine and serving escargot and stuff like that, you'll probably see my family there because we like weird foods, but you probably won't have a lot of kids coming in to try snails. But it helps you. It helps you target your piece. And that's something, again, as you start building the marketing side of your business, will help you identify. It'll also help you identify and reach if you haven't established what you want to call your business. Because, again, I'll use myself as the example. Red Lips Mentor for me came about because I wear red lips everywhere, and that's how everybody identified me. Going back hindsight, I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, again, it identifies me. It makes women more comfortable to work with me. It narrows my niche down to a female demographic more than a male demographic. I probably would have invested more time in creating a business name that was more universal. So I didn't follow my own advice. I didn't look at my customer profile in terms of the generalities, and I narrowed myself after the fact. So that's why I tell people, if you're starting out, you're creating it, you're naming it, and so forth, your customer that you want to reach is going to help create what you may call yourself, and will lead you into then also your branding. And that tends to be one that a lot of people also place into the secondary half of their nurturing. They will kind of think, well, I want to get out there, I want to sell, I want to do all of that part first. I'll figure out how I tell people about me after. And really, you kind of need the chicken to lay the egg. So you need the marketing to provide what you're going to sell. And you need the branding to define the marketing. So following that path, that is one you need to look at and invest in. I always tell people too, if you're not a creative individual, but you're trying to save on money, finding the friend that will tell you you've eaten too many holiday cookies to run all ideas by when you do your marketing is a great resource. When nurturing and looking for advice, reach out to those friends that are not afraid to tell you you've put on those 5 pounds from Thanksgiving, you've put on, or that color lipstick doesn't look right on you, or maybe they just subtly ask you, hey, do you want to go shopping? Because they're the ones who are going to tell you when your idea doesn't make sense to the rest of the world. And a challenge becomes, we live in our business, we live in our world, we eat, sleep, breathe our business. So we tend to forget what layman terms are and what the generic broad stuff will be. One of my clients, it's a government entity. So I spend half the time speaking in acronyms when it comes to government related stuff. And I use this example to explain, I sound like I'm reciting the alphabet half the time when I'm going over things with them. And I always dread the client who has booked an appointment with me after I finished working on something for the government one, because I'm still speaking in acronyms when I transfer over, and it usually takes me a minute to say, oh yeah, I can't just rattle off SOPs, because a small business owner might not know, especially if they're newer, the abbreviation for standard operating procedures and all of those pieces. So having those buffers in place to work on your vernacular with your clients and making sure they understand what generic terms are and what you understand they think of it as is important for nurturing and growing, because you need to speak their language, not your language.
Kathyrn, if
yes,
you mind if I just interject very quickly, I think there's some excellent points you've already made. I do want to remind folks to please use the chat function, and I'll keep an eye on that as Kathyrn goes through the session. If you have any questions or if you have any comments to add, and I will watch that closely for you. Thanks, Kathyrn.
Yes. I encourage, as I go through stuff, I'm very much, if something pops in my mind, I want to say it right away. So please do type it in there, and we'll try to address it because it's probably relevant to whatever I'm kind of reviewing at that moment. I also want to give the disclaimer. A lot of this I tried to put as general information. And so if there's something you want me to drill down further, more to your industry specific, I'd be happy to as best as I can. Because when I was looking over the list of attendees, I saw it was kind of an across the gamut piece of businesses, and industries represented. So I wanted to have it as broad as possible for you guys. As well as I noticed some are in business, some are starting business. So it's a little bit of everything. So that said, as I was saying, the marketing, the branding is part that you want to really nurture and carry throughout. It will take you throughout the life of your business. Unfortunately, that's not one that is a set it and forget it type part of your or component of your business. So using the example of today's world, we're all kind of advertising, we're all kind of living on digital pieces when I talk about the marketing and nurturing that. And with the digital world, it's everybody expects things immediate. Boom, 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 boom. They want to see it. They want to hear it. They want a response right now. They don't like a 12-hour wait window, which I don't understand sometimes when they ask you questions at 9 o'clock at night. But I can tell you there are some people who expect that at 9 o'clock at night you should still be answering, which is crazy. So please don't. Please make sure you make time for yourself. That said, with your marketing and having to have this digital piece, and you almost feel like as a small business owner, especially if you've had to cut back marketing staff or the person who ran your Facebook or ran your Instagram and did your email campaigns, if you had to let them go because you're cutting back on what you're able to offer because your services are, you know, restricted, or the sales just haven't returned yet, that can be a hard part to want to keep going because you feel like you have to live on a screen. You have to have Facebook popping up on your phone and all these pieces. So a supplemental answer to being able to nurture that in interim, are you able to either bring back the person who was doing this for you part-time? Because I will tell you, investing in that and having that presence, especially right now, and in this uncertainty of, do we face shutdowns again in the coming months? You're going to want to maintain that strong digital side to nurture and grow the business and continue on with your presence. If you're not able to bring them back, maybe it's because they need full-time, they need benefits, all those types of things. Start looking at who can you outsource stuff to. As a small business owner, I think one of the most underutilized resources that a lot of them don't take advantage of are 1099s and subcontractors, freelance work, so forth. And honestly, you might have a good-hearted friend that is like a stay-at-home mom. I'll use an example. I have a client in Hagerstown. They opened up a bar, a restaurant kind of vibe in the middle of this pandemic, which just sounds crazy to do because it's one of the industries that keeps in the state of Maryland getting restricted on their content, on their capacities, all those. But they set the date, they committed to it, they followed it through. Because they've had to be so lean on their business side for employees and staff, and they know they need to advertise heavily because there's a lot of competition, they actually have utilized the stay-at-home wife of one of the owners to do their marketing. So she is online while she's at home with their young child, taking care of all their marketing stuff, because she's got downtime in between when the child's napping and when she's, you know, filling in gaps in the evening and so forth. But those are some resources we don't look at as well, is sometimes you have a friend who maybe they can log on, they can help out with sharing some posts for you while you're taking care of whoever's coming through the door, because that's the next part we feel a pull right now, especially, is we want to take care of whomever is showing up at our doorstep, either in person or virtually. We want to almost feel like we have to drop everything right now, which can apply a new pressure when you're taking care of whatever it is you need to do in the business. It's, I got to stop. And while that immediacy has always existed, you probably feel it a little more right now, because when they show up, you want to make sure you're capitalizing on everything you can right away. So again, looking at how can you outsource is the next part that's important for nurturing your growth of the business. Outsourcing things can be anywhere from, if you're not a numbers person, finding an accountant, signing up for QuickBooks where you can enter some of the data, they can access it remotely from another side, and they can take care of those figures for you. It can be hiring a virtual assistant who might do all of your database entry. They're pulling from your website for you all of the signups you get for emails. They're doing all the email pieces. They're doing social media. They're booking appointments. Maybe they're answering your phones. You have phones rerouted to a call service that people are, you know, sitting somewhere else, answering it, booking everything, and you're able to just take care of what needs to be done in that building, in that space, face-to-face pieces. And again, I think people get nervous on that and they think, well, they're not going to be able to deliver the quality of service that I personally am going to be able to do. And that circles back to that first part. If you've established a strong brand, a strong marketing piece, you're able to define who you are. Hiring one of these 1099 folks, they should be able to look at it and see, okay, they have a very personal touch when they're answering their clients online, or they give very just kind of generic, broad information. I can mimic those pieces. I have seen what you've defined your business as. I can see what you're setting your presence up as, that I can mirror that for you and I can offer those. You can also, if it's on the marketing side, hand them your branding guide and say, here's the colors I use, here's the fonts I use, so that it's very seamless. And a lot of people won't realize that it's somebody else doing the work for you. I have a client who's an artist and they have an art studio, and I handle her digital side of things. Her clients who sit in class with her every week and take art classes and interact with her on a regular basis don't realize it's not her writing the posts, it's me, because she defined her business so well that I can mirror and mimic her language and how she likes to deliver things, that they're constantly, they'll say, you know, thank you, and they'll ask how things are and all this, you know, on her posts, and she's like, it's not me writing it though. So that's another piece to nurture and grow your business and get you back on track with focusing where you want to be. That piece of looking at, how do I bring in outside help? And another key thing to think of, especially as a small business owner, when you're hiring as someone in a freelance role, in a 1099 role, it's key. It's saving you in some ways. You're not paying some of those taxes that are associated with hiring employees and so forth, because they take care of that on their own. That's part of what they sign up for as a 1099. So you're not having to provide the insurance costs, workman's comp, all of those, because that's on their plate, not yours. So it's a nice piece to fill in when you don't have the funds to be able to hire someone who will be on your payroll, so to speak, and help save you costs there. It also can help just save your sanity. Put a plug for that as well, which leads into the next part, that when nurturing your business, your mental well-being and your mental state goes through a lot of trials and errors and taxing pieces as a business owner. And it'll affect how you nurture your business and how you grow it, because you started this business, or you bought this business, or you took over a business because you had a passion for it, you had an interest in it, and it probably was related around whatever that industry was. It might not have been related around inventory lists. It might not have been related around choosing font colors. It might not have been related around entering database information and, you know, making sure that your CRM is maintained. So those will wear on you. If they're not something you like doing, you won't put as much passion into it. You won't put as much effort into it. So finding someone who will be able to do it helps you, because then it puts you back on what you enjoy, which is whatever reason you got into your business. And I think we can all agree, when we enjoy something, we give an extra 110%. We have the smile on our face. And I will say, even if we're wearing a mask, you can tell if someone is smiling. Their eyes show it. So the happier you are, the more that just kind of, we've learned it's infectious, but it's infectious in a good way, that you spread, you know, it makes people want to come back to your business. It makes them want to interact with you. So putting those pieces in place are important. And then on top of that, also adding in to your mental well-being. Again, right now, especially, we're chasing every sale, every customer, every lead that can come to our door or to our email, and make sure you are nurturing yourself, because nurturing yourself is nurturing your business. So leading into finding balance in your life, defining hours that you will work, you will not work. If you're taking Sundays off, that means your Sundays are off. And establishing that is important to nurturing your business, because it's setting expectations for your clients and customers. I can tell you, the moment you start answering an email on the weekend, but you've told them you don't work weekends, your clients just heard you work weekends. They totally negated that first statement that you don't. So if you are up to the task of being available 24/7, you're super human, because it's hard. So maintain your mental balance, maintain your own self, because nurturing that is crucial. Taking care of what you need to at home is crucial, because that's the next part I see a lot of business owners run into when they're trying to grow their business. They put 110 into the business, and then there's nothing left at home. So that would be the next part of nurturing, is having conversations with loved ones at home. For example, right now, I've got clients that are across the US, so I have a little bit of weird hours. I have some that are on West Coast time, which might mean it's 7, 8 o'clock here, but it's really just towards the end of their workday there, so they think it's okay to still have meetings. I've had to have conversations with my family, with my kids, and so forth, to make them aware, and learning that they need to, when they see headphones on, this is my definer in my household. Mommy's in a meeting, mommy's doing something, mommy's taking care of stuff. So having conversations with folks, it's taken a lot of stress off of my plate, that my kids aren't like interrupting and running through. Now I just have to worry about the little furry ones who have no conversation skills on there. But set those conversations up, take care of those pieces, nurture the home life, and then you can nurture the business as well. I don't know if any of you are running into that and struggling right now with trying to find those balances, but it's a huge one in the businesses right now, is the owners are all feeling pull and stress, and they're trying to find ways to first take care of home life before anything else, because that, again, carries over into how you run your business. So I don't know if there's any.
I might interject again quickly,
Yes.
if you don't mind. First of all, to let you know that Dr. Achampong, and for those of you on the call who don't know who he is, he's the chancellor for our campus and was very instrumental in getting the Launchbox up and running as a new initiative for our area. So I know he's a big supporter of Launchbox activities, but he wanted to say thank you and had to leave. And I wanted to mention as well, I think all of us feel, especially now in this virtual world, that those lines between home and work have blurred to a large extent. So I can only imagine, as a new business owner, how that's even more prolific, and the spotlight is really on, you know, being there quickly, being responsive. So that's tough.
Yes. Yes. In pre-COVID world, I used to recommend, as soon as the business finances would allow for a company to do it, move out of the home. Especially for those service-based ones where you could have a home office. If you were able and you were blessed enough with space that you could have an extra bedroom that you could go in and shut the door, that was one thing. But if you were working at the kitchen table, sitting in the living room, whatnot entrepreneur, the soonest you could move out of your home to a space that you could shut a door and be away from, the better your mental state was going to feel. Because it kind of created that definition of work life, home life. And there's plenty of resources. Launchbox is one of them, where you could rent desks so you didn't have to pay for a full office space if you needed to. I mean, even as simple as if you were in a comfortable situation, you could go sit and have background noise like at a Panera Bread. Panera Bread has now launched a coffee subscription where you could sign up to get so many cups of coffee each day within a time frame, and it's like $8 a month. I saw that email. I was like, genius for those of us who are stuck at home and are not allowed to go to our offices. Genius moment. Or another tip, if you are stuck at home and things go into a further lockdown period, like I said, I shared the tip earlier with, I have really big headphones. I love earbuds, but my really big headphones are easier for my kids to notice, so they know mom has those on, mom's working. This is mom's defined time, because I don't have an office where I can shut the door in my house. My office actually started getting renovated, COVID project. That's a whole nother thing. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say, I think you rock the headphones and the red lips.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. My red lips have been making less of an appearance, but I bought masks that have red lips on them too. So when I'm out in public, because going back to one of my first things I talked about, branding, simple, silly little things like that are so instrumental in growth for your business. I love to tell the story when I would go to chamber mixers and actually get to see people and network and be around them. I cannot tell you how many times, if it was like a rush day and I didn't have my red lipstick on, or it was an early morning one and I didn't trust my skills yet because I didn't have enough coffee to coherently apply lipstick, that I went to something, I would have people introduce themselves to me, start carrying on conversation, and I'd be like, we've met. And nicely, of course. And they would look at me and I'd be like, picture red lipstick here. And they're like, oh, yes, we've met. Because that's how much my branding, same hair, same glasses. Oh, yeah. Red lipstick made a difference for me. So whatever that niche is in your business, it's, again, very critical to make sure you identify those. Because they help you in the long run with things. So, oh, thank you. So another one just pop up saying they were heading out. So,
right.
I don't know. I kind of want to open it up because we're such a small crew here.
Yeah,
that
I think that would be good.
What are you guys struggling with? Obviously, when we said we were going to talk about stuff to nurture, something came to mind. So I don't know what you guys have questions on that I can try to help as best as possible.
I just gave everyone the ability to unmute themselves. So now if you have anything to say, feel free to click your little button.
It looks like we're down to 6. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. No, I mean, I just wanted to say I was looking forward to this session today. I joined, I emailed Helen and said that I really enjoyed the first session, but I think it's good just in general to have these types of talks and just know that, you know, you're not the only one kind of going through it all. So I think a lot of the things you mentioned, and is it Kathyrn?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm seeing the spelling here and I feel like that'd be easy to butcher, but no, I think a lot of the things you mentioned are accurate too. And yeah, I mean, I kind of resonate, or a lot of things you're saying are resonating. So I think, like you mentioned, the part where, you know, just kind of having that separate workspace really helps. I used to live in a studio in DC, just one room, and you can imagine like, it's like that, what you're mentioning, times 10. So yeah, I think it's important. And like, again, the balance part, I think it's one of those things that we all kind of know that we should be doing, but it's easy to just not do it. So, you know, at least for me, I think and I think everyone, right, you have like these moments of like you're doing really well and then like you're not doing so well. So I think just like reminding ourselves that like it's obviously never too late to find that balance. But yeah, I think what you're saying is making a lot of sense to me. So I appreciate the
Good.
input. And I think the stories too that you're mentioning with other businesses give me a good sense of like real examples, of stuff that people are dealing with. So especially during this time, it's nice to hear what other people are going through, not in like a nosy way, but just in like oh, you're not the only one who's like dealing with a specific type of problem. So thank you.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear. Yeah, it helps to hear when you're not the only one, because again, especially small business owners, we tend to operate in silos of our little world and just kind of focusing on what we've got going on for us. And so with those challenges, it kind of sits there and you kind of run through your mind. You're like, is it just me? Am I the only one? And it's not. It's across the board. It's not industry specific. I know I keep hearing a lot right now. I see it says copper kettle, restaurant industries and how negatively they're being impacted. But it's a lot across the board. It's just, I think, because so many of us are having to cook at home, we're realizing the struggle right now the restaurants are having, but it's also the folks who are in manufacturing are running into issues, and so forth with getting supplies and parts. For example, I was talking with an HVAC company earlier in the pandemic, and we were actually having work done at the house. And I asked them, I'm like, can you know, what's it going to take when we're installing a unit? We were taking out baseboard heat and installing something more eco-friendly. And they looked at me and they're like, well, if you buy this product, I can have it to you in 2 weeks. I was like, okay. He goes, but if you buy this product, I can have it to you in 4 to 6 months. And I was like, okay, looking at the specs, they're almost the exact same thing. He's like, well, this one uses this type of material, this one uses this material, and that material people aren't able to get their hands on because that industry wasn't doing, anything during the early shutdown, so they can't get stuff as quickly as this one. And I was like, okay, so it's carrying across the board of people running into issues, not just, this or that. I think the next one we're going to see that's going to be hugely impacted actually is going to be the real estate industry, because with so many people, especially large companies, transferring their business model to work from home status as opposed to having these big office buildings, because we just can't socially distance right now. 2, kids are at home, virtual learning, so parents need to be home. That's going to be the next one that we're going to probably see, but it'll take about a year before they really, start, hey, there's a lot of commercial space for rent, and that'll be our next impact. And I'm kind of nervous on that one, because we start seeing empty buildings, that changes dynamics of the way communities look. But yeah.
So true. I think a lot of the, you kind of mentioned the whole supply chain issue. I think the supply chain has become front and center for a lot of folks. End users who are trying to buy TP at their local store, to, the businesses who are learning more about where their supply chain leads and where the challenges and difficulties are, like you talked about with, maybe different specs for products that you may not have thought about in the past, but now you're wondering, where does this come from and what is the lead time and the availability.
And that's something that, especially because a lot of time with supply chain, they look at who are my large customers who purchase large orders. So as a small business owner, if you're starting to see issues with getting supplies coming in as quickly on the turnaround as as you may have been used to, you may, if you're in a position that you can double order, do so, because I don't want to say there's favorites amongst business, but as business people, we all know if you have a client who places large orders and is a bulk of your business. You want to fulfill their order before the guy who maybe only is 1 or 2% of your business. And it's just the reality of things. They want to make sure they're keeping whoever a large customer is happy. So that's something as a small business owner we have to start looking at, is when we're ordering stuff and we're running into supply issues.
So I'm seeing a question posted in chat. Do you have any recommendations on how to pick a name for your business? And that's from Brandon.
Yes. So I have a really cute story when it comes to picking a business name that I ran into. It was not somebody I worked with. So I was trying to help a friend find a cupcake business to do specialty cupcakes for their husband's birthday last year. And we were doing the typical, you type on Facebook, search and so forth, and recommendations. And someone sent us a link. And so we're all adults, so I can say this, and you'll probably catch the acronym. They were Sweet AF Cupcakes. And if you know what AF stands for, I'm going to be polite and I won't, you know, but I was like, Sweet AF. The lady's name, her initials are A and F. I had to reach out and ask, just from I was curious. I was like, so when you picked that name, she's like, well, I went with my initials, which is what I guessed. I was like, did you research it at all? No. I was like, you know, Google it once. She Googled it. Because it turned out she was a friend of a friend of a friend, so I could be a little more, you know, open. And she Googled it. I was like, so when people look at yours, they may automatically not go to, oh, it's your name for the AF. It means something else. So when picking a name, lesson learned for her was Google whatever ideas you have first. And then second, look it up in Urban Dictionary, just to make sure there is no slang terms associated with the idea you have for your business, and it will make sense, politically correct across the board. That's number one. Number two, back to that friend who will tell you when you're starting to gain too much weight, run the idea by them, see if it makes sense to them, because they'll tell you if it's too obscure. I've run across company names where I've sat there and I've been like, what do you do? The tagline didn't, you know, explain it. The company name didn't explain it. And I'm pretty sure, like most people, if I have to sit there and I go, what do you do? And I have to look too far into it, I'm probably just going to move on to the next one, because when you're pulling up and typing in Google, I'm looking for lawn care service, and you have like all these crazy names, because we know Google just kind of pulls any weird piece that they can sometimes for their background analytics when they're doing the search and the SEOs, that you're just like, where did it come up with this? If I'll pass on them. I'll go to the next one that makes sense, like it says like green lawn care or something. So simple is best. The closest to whatever it is you want your product to be, your business to be, so forth, the easier it is for the customer's mind to define what it is, the better off in the long run you'll be. But obviously you want to pick something you'll like and enjoy as well. So, you know, finding that marriage of the two is key tips to it. If it's not something where you can come up with and you're just not feeling like a creative individual to figure out what the name is, again, pulling in someone to work and help you with branding and marketing. Sometimes they'll actually help you with creating the business name, because when you're doing branding, you're doing marketing and starting those early phases, you're writing all the words up on the wall that define what you want to be known for, what you want to be recognized as, what traits you want the company to have, all that you might find it through that way too. So a little bit of, you know, creativity, but mostly simplicity is best.
Simplicity and descriptive.
Yes. Yes.
And Brandon says, thank you. And I know sometimes companies will set up a holding company or a shell company, and maybe that can be your initials, and your operating name or your trading as is that descriptor that lets people know what you do. That makes a lot of sense.
The other one, I try to, if I'm in the early phases of helping someone, steer them away from, is not calling it them. So, for example, I didn't call my company Kathyrn Gratton Consulting. And while my reputation was obviously built upon me, my name, my reason for that being was in thought process. My daughter, who's 14, shows a lot of interest in helping me with stuff with the business. If I turn it over to her someday, she's not Kathyrn Gratton. She's not going to want to operate a company called Kathyrn Gratton. So, or if I wanted to sell the company or franchise the company, it's harder to do it if it's your name. So choosing something of a generic basis helps if your long-term goal is to find a way to sell and turn this out as revenue later to, you know, offload it to someone else, then. So that's another part to keep in mind when choosing it. But then again, you could always do, as Helen mentioned, you could set up the parent company as yourself and then do DBAs to have whatever you wanted to explain the different branches. I've seen that as well when they realize later on that they're going to want to sell something, sell a branch off at some point. So yeah. And the other one would be when establishing it, do an LLC. Do an LLC, set up a separate entity, as opposed to, especially if you're a solo, one-man, one-woman show, just so that way there's a separation and protection on the legal side between you, your personal assets, and your business assets. So can't stress that one enough. I've seen some of those nightmares play out.
That's good advice.
So.
Anything else? I know we're scheduled to go until 12:30, but I'm sure people will be grateful to have a few minutes if we finish a few minutes early. So there will be a recording. I'm sure, Leighton, you'll be planning to send that out to folks. Thank you for doing that.
No problem. Yes, I will. I'll probably post the recording on our website as well, but I'll send an email to everyone who registered so you can have the link to go back to it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great information that Kathyrn has covered here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for doing this, Kathyrn, and Helen for putting it together.
Yeah, I love helping and educating.
And for the folks on the call, if anybody would like to follow up with me afterwards, I will be more responsive than I was to Billy. Sorry about that, Billy. I did finally get back in touch with you. But I will be looking. I've made a note of names, and I'll be paying attention to your names coming into my inbox, and I'll know who you are. So thank you for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you at more Launchbox events in the future.
Yes.
And we don't have any lunch and learns on the calendar yet, but stay tuned for those as well. Hopefully sometime in the new year we can have Launchbox back and do another one.
Great. We will do it.
Sounds good. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.